Hello, welcome to the Your Pet Detective Show. I'm Angel Nieves, your host. I'm a retired NYPD detective, and I'm a private investigator in New York, specialty on investigating pets. Today, we're going to talk about something that's going on now. It's going on. It's hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, fires. I mean, it's like one after another. And we're talking about, I want to show you a film first. I want to show you something that it got me upset. I want to use better words. And it happened in Florida in the middle of the time of the Hurricane Milton yesterday morning. Luckily for a trooper from a highway from Florida, Highway Patrol, that he actually found his dog. Here's a video. It's all over. It's a poor baby.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's okay, buddy. It's okay.
He's saying it's okay for the doggy, but it's not okay for the person who left the dog there. If anybody in Florida know this dog, and when you go back, you see this dog is not around, call Florida, call the patrol, let them know who owns that dog. But there's no way you should leave a dog tied up that way, and no defense is tied up. No way could defend himself. No way could swim. It's really heartbroken. But we're going to talk about animals and planning, not only for the animals, but planning for your family. And you have to be prepared before it happens. Don't wait for it to happen and say, okay, we got this. And you always have to think about plan B, not only plan A, because plan A most of the time does get screwed up. So got plan B and C. It's a plan for you, your family, and your pets. Plan ahead. Okay, so hello.
Hey there.
Hi, we have, let me see if I pronounce it right. Genere?
Genere.
Genere? There's
Yes.
a T in there.
It's
Okay.
French.
Oh, Genere Bowen. Okay.
Yes.
It's not Italian. But we have you here. You're actually the owner, the CEO of Dog E911,
Yes.
and also FCF Paul's director,
Yes.
and an animal CMT, which is massage, and an EMT and pet wellness.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I have been working with animals since 2007, basically after Hurricane Katrina, which we're talking about disasters today. And so prior to that, I was actually working in the medical field with people. And then after Katrina happened, I was really bothered by the fact that animals were left behind, like you were talking about a minute ago. And the fact that first responders weren't allowed basically to assist animals during that time. And so it really kind of wore on me and wanting to be involved. And so I started kind of doing some research and seeing what I could do to help and got involved. And I also had a tragic accident during that time as well, where I had an animal that I hit in my vehicle. I tried to avoid it, but I hit him, and it was pretty overwhelming and pretty devastating for me. So using those two tragedies, I basically wanted to find a way to help animals because I felt like I needed to do something. I just felt this calling. And so I basically transitioned from working with people, which I still work with people, obviously, but I basically transitioned working for people the majority of the time to working with animals. And I got my degree as an animal paramedic, as an animal massage therapist. I started working, doing anything I could to help animals in wellness, as well as triage, as well as disaster response. And the stuff with, since Katrina happened, I got really involved with the legislative side as well, so that I could help others and myself make a difference going forward with disasters and preparedness.
Okay. It's true, because I was listening and I hear from people saying that I'm not leaving without my pets.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
Go
yeah.
ahead.
And I would be I'm the same way. There's no way I'd leave my animals behind. And on that token, during Katrina, like I said, there was not a plan set up at that time for wide scale across the board that animals, could be taken in places. I mean, there was places that were taking them, but not, to the degree it is now, as well as there was no system, everyone working together to make sure that that was, happening. And first responders weren't, necessarily allowed to help. So 44% of the people involved in Hurricane Katrina stayed behind to stay with their animals because they didn't want to leave them. Because I mean, people might remember there was, people would drive up in buses to take them, and they would deny them because they wanted to board with their animals. And there was other videos I watched that were heartbreaking, where people were like kind of ripped away from their animals and told they had to leave them behind. And I was furious seeing that. I was just furious. And so that's where, a lot of this came from, with trying to help make changes so that that didn't happen again.
But the legislation did come out with some laws.
It did in 2000 and the very end of 2006, actually. A bunch of different groups were angry and got together, and it was not only animal groups and animal, lovers, and rescues and places like that, and some of the larger scale rescues, but also, some first responders and some, groups that were, working in the disaster field. They got together and basically said, we need to change this. And so there was a couple of different laws that were passed. The Pets Act was one of them. And the Pets Act basically, was there to help make sure that this didn't happen again. And so it basically went into effect first, and then the Post-Katrina Reform Act kind of happened. So these all kind of happened around the end of 2006. And once they were signed into law, basically what it stated was that, everything that was going to happen going forward would require local and emergency management for the state to make sure they had accountability before, during, and after a disaster situation. And then what it also did was it placed, aid under FEMA, so that, FEMA was there to help provide for service animals and allocating funds so that way they had animal friendly shelters and stuff. And so that's kind of, where that bill kind of started. And that was a broad bill because it covered, everything nationally. It also worked under the Department of Homeland Security to make sure that, this stuff would be taken care of. The only issue is getting the message out there, making sure that everyone knew this, and making sure the first responders knew this, and making sure that the animal rescue groups knew this. And so what also started happening was other states started going in and kind of writing their own legislation to kind of like tag on to that national legislation. California and Georgia were two of the first states to do that. And then it kind of built out from there. So now we have not all states in the United States are covered, but over 30 states are covered with their own state bills. So everyone falls under the disaster response program under the Pets Act and stuff for the national laws, but having those state bills also made sure that we had a standardized emergency response system for animals under the state as well as nationally. And it also made sure that we developed animal response systems so that that way there was also statewide funding and grants and things that we could make sure so that this stuff was also taken care of. So basically the laws state, which is why that was so frustrating about that dog that you were showing a little while ago. The laws state that if you go, they go too. You don't leave them behind. These are laws that have passed and are, enacted to say that, if you go, they go. There's so many different things that are out there now, and a lot more people are realizing that, and the first responders know it now. And so it's just basically continuing to get that message out there, making sure that people know the laws and preparedness for it.
Good. So that means that even though they go by national, but each state has different types, which could be upgraded more.
Absolutely.
Animals. But now you say these are for domestic animals, right? These are for
dogs,
cats, birds.
That's a good question. So, the national bill basically was talking about service animals and domesticated animals, like pets. But they've taken it kind of a little further since they've added in some of the stuff with FEMA to incorporate some of the other, types of animals. And the state bills have taken it even further to allocate funding for, for like farms and like horse rescues or, bird rescues or any type of thing. It could be the zoo animals or something, because obviously you think about it, in a disaster, everything's going on. Yeah. So you don't know what's going to be impacted. It could be a farm. It could be a zoo. It could be, a sanctuary. It could be your own home with your pets. You could have horses on your property. You never know what's going to happen. And so we want to make sure all of these animals are protected. And there's groups working to make sure that these animals are, taken care of, as well as being able to get them out of harm's way.
Yeah, because that little film that I showed, that poor horse on top of the barn, it's like, it's like, all they could do is swim after that, but how much they can swim.
Absolutely.
But also in Florida, it's a lot of exotic animals. We're talking about big cats. We're talking about gators. We're talking about snakes. We're talking about, and they have their own little, they call it farms or game farms, but it's like mini zoos. And
exactly. Yeah.
These animals have to be safe too. They can't stay in the barn.
Exactly. Well, if they're trapped, like the dog you were showing, the dog could get away if it could at least, they still shouldn't be left behind, obviously, like I said, because the laws have changed. That person could be prosecuted if they find out who it is. But if the animal's tied up or locked in a barn or whatever, they can't get out. If it's a flood, fire, whatever, they can't get out. So they're basically trapped. So It's better to let them loose than to leave them locked up if you're going to leave them. But we want making sure that people are prepared and know what to do to get out, as well as having the places that take in the animals and knowing how to work with that. So yeah, we don't want them left behind, and we definitely don't want them left where they're locked up or tied up. They have no defenses.
Right. Well, that's why I go to the next plan. It's about planning.
Absolutely.
That's what you are an expert on. How can I plan for this disaster? Should I wait for the last minute? Should I take a couple of days? People just leave everything to the end. I could do that tomorrow. I could take care of it tomorrow. And then it passes by and say, well, you're done.
Yeah, and a lot of people do that. I think that's a human thing to procrastinate, because you think, that's not going to happen, or I'll deal with that later. And we all do it to some form. And so it's understandable, but it's just like anything else. The more that you are aware and prepare, the better off you are, when something does happen, because the basic thing is you never know. Disasters, that's what's crazy, is disasters can happen anytime. And it doesn't have to be just a natural disaster. It could be a man-made disaster. It could be, an explosion from something, or a nuclear plant, something happens to it. There could be these other things that happen as well. So you want to be prepared for any type of emergency. And it's just like they tell you, planning for a fire in your home with your children, or, knowing first aid if someone's choking. It's the same stuff, knowing what to do in the event of an emergency. And when you're dealing with large scale, especially when you're dealing with multiple animals, you definitely want to have a plan of action, because when that disaster strikes, you don't want to be running all over the place trying to grab it here and there and get these animals, because the animals are going to panic because you panic.
Right.
And I know you know that animals feed off of our energy. And a lot of animals, specifically pack animals, that, they look to each other. If one's panicking, another panics. And then you've got this huge thing. You're dealing with the disaster as well as panicking animals, which can cause, obviously, then you're dealing with other things. The animals could bite or kick or, scratch, or, so then you're getting injured. The animals are getting injured, plus the disaster situation. It just can compound onto each other. So having that stuff planned ahead and being calm is going to keep the animals calm and make sure that everything goes smoothly during that situation when it happens.
So how can we plan?
So the biggest thing I always tell people, and like we were talking about the laws and the plan and the stuff before, the thing that people need to remember is they think that they can call, like, oh, I'll just call, for help. I'll just call for help. Well, so basically you want to be able to be prepared to be on your own for at least 3 days. That's like the biggest key, is three days of being able to be on your own. And the reason that is, it's not that there's nobody there helping, okay, during a disaster. Like right now, they're inundated with, assisting and helping. But the issue is that they're so overwhelmed during a disaster that you need to have some preparation for being able to be on your own for at least those 3 days. And that way, you kind of have, the things that you need, and you're able to be prepared to just deal with the situations that you might come up on. And so I tell people, just at least plan for that, because what happens in a disaster is these groups and the it could be like United Way, it could be Red Cross, it could be your local animal shelter, it could be your bird sanctuary, or your whoever's coming in. They're all going to be working together at that time, all of your local organizations, and then it kind of reaches out from there. It goes into they all kind of work together and have a system now where we all kind of communicate, and everything works under the disaster response system, and the animal program is under that. And so all the local groups will come together and work, and then areas around that, like other counties that are nearby, start pulling and working in as well. And then if it grows to a larger disaster very quickly, like these hurricanes that have been happening recently, when they start really growing and getting really crazy fast, it could move from a statewide thing, a local county thing, to a national disaster very quickly. And so then those counties will come in, then the statewide legislation, kicks in where there's animal response teams and stuff, and then it's our national teams. And so basically those could move very fast. Those could move like within a matter of hours, or even pre-storm, so that they're already prepping for it. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. And it's just, like I said, it's just good for you to have all the things you need, basically to provide for your animals and be on your own if you have to shelter in place, if you have to leave for at least 3 days. And then, the other groups will come in and support as well.
You're right, because like what happened with Milton now.
Yes.
People say it's only going to hit Tampa. Miami. Jacksonville. I mean these places here that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
But the thing is, people didn't really pick up, and it should have said in the news actually, is that when there's a hurricane, there's tornadoes.
Yes.
And
yes.
Everybody was getting hit by tornado. Miami-Dade, everywhere was getting hit by tornadoes.
Yes.
And cyclones and everything else. And 4 people died.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and they don't report the animals as often, so you don't even know how many animals are impacted. People like myself that work in the field, we see more of the totals on that side of it, but in the regular news you don't always see that. And so that also is an issue too, of the loss as well. And I know that the news changes all the time, so there's so much going on and then they move on to the next thing, but that doesn't mean it's over. That doesn't mean that things are back to normal, because like Katrina took years and years, and there's still areas that aren't recovered from that. So it's really important that, again, like you were talking about, if something is happening, things can change. The weather can change. The winds can change. I mean, dealing with, I live on the West Coast. I'm in California, and I've worked on different disasters across the country. But what I've seen in disasters and can happen, and has happened when I've been working them, is we'll have animals move to one location, let's say a fairgrounds, and we'll have them settled, and we'll be feeding and watering and caring for them and moving them there. And all of a sudden the winds change and the fire shifts, and we have to get those animals out of the location we're in and settled in and move them to another location. And so that's why there's groups like, VOAD and these groups that work together to have these different facilities to move animals to, because you never know what can happen. You never know what direction the storm is going to take. It could change. And so I think everyone, again, preparedness. And if you're anywhere, I mean, even it's like a remote, even if it's a possibility, getting out or sheltering in place if you're told to do so, doing stuff to make sure that you're protected and your animals are safe, because you just never know.
Now, you were talking about planning. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
But I wanted people to understand, when you say planning, what is the plan?
So it's basically, getting things that you need ahead of time,
Like what?
and knowing what to do. And like I said, there's funding out there, because some people, some places like rescue sanctuaries, they may not have all the funding that they need to buy things, but there are grants and things out there that you can apply for through FEMA and through these different laws that are set up to be able to get the things you need, like horse trailers or generators, or, just different supplies that you may need, maybe disaster vehicles to move animals into, crates, all of those types of things.
The different type of foods and medic stuff, right?
Yeah, because you're going to need all that in the event of a disaster. And so that's, one of the things is the grants and fundings that are out there that people want to do ahead of time, because obviously when a disaster strikes, you're not going to be able to do that then. You need to plan and do that ahead. So if you have...
You actually not only need plan A, you need plan A, B, and C.
That's right.
If you have a car full of gas inside the trunk and everything, now the water takes it, you got no more gas.
Exactly. So you've got to have backup plans. And you and I have spoke about this, but this is a really, to me, this is one of like the best examples. Like I worked the Paradise fire a couple of years ago. And of course, Paradise had 2 fires, but the original one that was really bad up in Northern California, there was a shelter there in the city. And I was very concerned about it because the whole town basically burned to the ground. Only like 2-3 buildings were left that were standing. And while I was up there, I found out that one of the buildings that was left standing was the animal shelter, which was amazing. But I also wanted to know what happened to those workers, those animals. And while I was up there working at the airport, where we were housing multiple animals, bulls, dogs, cats, snakes, everything, I found out that the animals got out safely and the workers. And that is a great example of those people that ran that shelter were prepared ahead of time. They did all their stuff ahead of time to get prepared, to have everything that they needed. And when they saw that there was even a chance that the fire could come through their area, they left, got the animals out to safety, and they were gone before it hit. And so every one of them was okay. Every one of them.
Now, how can I plan for my animals? Otherwise, I'm talking about like paperwork and identification and all that stuff.
Absolutely. So some of the things that people can do, like I said, first, I say if you've got a large scale facility and you've got lots of animals and you've got multiple animals, or even if you're like, my parents own a sanctuary in North Carolina, and they're their own private sanctuary, and but they're a nonprofit, and so and they just dealt with Helene. So they were dealing with the disaster there. So I say, if you do have anything like that, I mean, definitely look into the grant funding and stuff. And I can assist with all of that, through my website and stuff if people need assistance. But there's look into the funding and get that stuff ahead of time. The other thing that people can do is go to one of their local VOAD meetings. And if people don't know what that is, VOAD is an organization that is, it's basically, VOAD stands for Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. And we have national chapters, we have regional chapters, we have county chapters and state chapters. And so people can look that up, VOAD, VOAD, and look and see where their local chapter is. And it may be in their county, it may be in their state, it may be a regional chapter, but we're having more and more of those pop up, but they're also national chapters. And what you can do is go and sit in a meeting. You can go for free and it's no big deal. Some of the meetings are online because since COVID, they've changed a lot of things. And you can go and learn about your own community's disaster plan. I think that's another great thing to do, because that way, for your area and your community, what's happening, what they're going to be doing, which organizations are coming together. And this would be animal and human side of things coming together to work to be able to assist in a disaster. And so it basically shows you how, this works. You can sit, listen to a meeting, ask questions, and just learn about your own community so that how things work in the event of a disaster. If you have a facility like a sanctuary or a place, a rescue, or maybe even like a doggy spa or like a kennel or something, then you can also join VOAD. And a lot of times it's like really cheap, like $20, a year or something like that. It's not anything. You can become a part of VOAD, and then you can be able to, assist during a disaster. And if you have, like, let's say you've got, 40 acres of property, and you can also, give your space up during a disaster to help house animals and move animals and things like that. And so that's another thing that you can do if that's something, that you wish to do. So it's basically learning about your local community organizations and how they work during a disaster, learning your plan so that you can also help prepare. And then, learning about the places where you can take your animals and stuff, because what happens also is this helps you to be able to know where you can take animals in an emergency. Do you take them to your animal shelter? Do you take them to the fairgrounds? Do you take them to a racetrack? Whatever. They'll have all of this information available so that people know what to do. It'll also help you learn who your core animal disaster response teams are, like I spoke of, that, whether it's your shelter, whether it's your local humane society, whether it's your local, animal sanctuary group, or, like a kennel or something that's taking in animals, or even your vet's office. Some of the vets, have larger offices, and they'll have, kennels and things that they will use, like in a disaster, to move animals to. And it also could be that they partner with other county organizations. So let's say there's a disaster in one county, they're partnering with outside areas to move those animals to, because that area could get hit really hard. And so at that point, you'll also learn those types of things there. So you'll know where to go and what to do. And then I tell people also, plan your own home and build your own kits, build your own disaster kits for your family, for your animals, and keep them with you. And if you have multiple locations, you need to have multiple supplies. And that's why the grants come in to help fund some of these organizations that have large things, like people that have, you're going to need more horse trailers if you have lots of horses. So you can get grant funding for that. It has to be used for disasters, but you can get all that. And so if you have like an RV, like I have a camper, and we have 2 vehicles, and we have our home. So I have kits in the camper in case we have to go quickly. I don't have to try to find all that stuff. It's already there.
Right.
And I have it in my house. I have it in my car. I have a smaller, to-go bag in my car. But that way I'm ready. I'm ready if there's anything, I just have it already set up to go. And so stuff like that, you want to check it and make sure if you have to rotate things or if they expire, but you're already prepared that way.
But okay, I'll give you a little scenario. I'm a disaster. I'm getting out of the house. The water comes. I'm grabbed to a tree. I see my dog going down. I mean, dogs are good swimmers. Not all of them drown. They know how to survive, and they go up ground. We know that. Cats also, and
Yes.
But the thing is, now my dog is gone. What do we do to prepare before that happens? God forbid you're apart from your pets.
So the biggest thing is back to what I was saying before, is if disaster response teams are telling you to evacuate, they're doing that for a reason. They're telling you to evacuate for a reason. And now that laws are in place, like I said, Katrina, people were told to leave their animals behind, so people stayed. Now that's not the case. There are the groups working, and there are the places to take them, and there's places where you can stay with your animals too. You don't have to necessarily, you not necessarily a place where you can stay with your horse, but they may be co-located. And what that means is, okay, so the Red Cross facility could be here, and the fairgrounds holding your horses could be directly across the street or nearby. So you're near your animals. So you're together, but you're not actually, right there on top of them. But there are facilities where you can take your pets with you. And Red Cross facilities didn't do that. And now they also take in small animals and things. Some of them have separate locations.
But now people have horses and turtles and
they do, and
service animals.
They do. And so some of those animals, small animals, can be taken into some of these locations that are co-located with the human shelters. Some of them cannot, but we always try to make sure that animals are basically kind of in close proximity of the owners. We try to make sure that happens, or at least, somewhere where you can get to them and be with them. Because obviously during a disaster, the animal being away from you is harder on the animal and the person when they've lost everything else. And they don't want to see us, the workers, they want to see their owners. Correct. So if we can have them co-located, that's always the best. So that's always something we try to do. And that stuff, again, we do preparedness ahead of time so that we have that ready. And so basically back to your question is, if someone is, leaving when they're told to leave, or they shelter in place and they're told to stay there with their pets, then that's one of the ways to make sure that you're kept together, because you're evacuating together, you're getting out together, or you're staying, sheltering in place together, getting the animals in and keeping them in so that everyone stays together. And that's just one of the ways. And when we get them to the facilities, that's where all of these response workers work together to make sure all the intake that comes in is keeping your animal together, whether it be photographing them, getting all the information on them, getting all the records on them. And we do a lot of paperwork at the intake to make sure that animal, when they come in, if they are separated from you at any time, they're going back with you. They're going to be back with you. They're not going to be going with somebody else. So that's another way that we work together to do that.
What I tell the people to do is, before anything, they should always do it from the beginning, no matter if it's a disaster or not, is to keep paperwork together.
Absolutely.
Identification together. Make sure your dog's are microchip, your pets are microchip,
right.
Even horses.
That's right.
Make sure that is up to date with your phone number. Make sure to put the tags or whatever you have to put.
Absolutely. It's so important, because the more that you can identify your animals, the better. And people think it's not that big a deal, but think about a large scale disaster and you have multiple animals. Just for example, one fairgrounds that I was working with during the disaster had over 1,000 animals in just that fairgrounds. And that was only one fairgrounds. So you're talking about large, areas where there's animals impacted in multiple areas, and you've got multiple, thousands of animals here, if you don't have all of that, that's where it can get lost. And that's where the more that you keep track, the better. We're going to do that as well. We're going to make sure that when they come into us, that we're doing all the intake and trying to make sure that everything stays together. But the more that you can do to prepare is the better. And microchipping is a wonderful way, because tags, collars, all of that stuff can fall off. So microchipping is wonderful because it's permanent, and it's going to stay with that animal, making sure that the pet ownership gets back to that, the animal ownership gets back to that owner. But back to that, you want to make sure all that stuff is updated, because I had an animal that we got, and it was actually a service animal, and this dog got loose away from the owner. The animal's microchip was in, we were able to scan it, but the problem is the stuff wasn't updated. So it was an old address. It wasn't even the original owner. So it took us longer to get this animal reunited with this owner, which was very vital, because everyone knows a service animal needs to stay. And that's something that's also important. They have to stay with their owners. It doesn't matter what the situation is during disaster. We make sure they stay together. And so getting this animal back to this owner took longer because the microchip stuff wasn't updated. So you want to make sure not only are they chipped, but everything is up to date. Everything is changed. If you move, make sure you update that. If you change your phone numbers, make sure you update that, because those things are important. And know your pet's microchip number. A lot of people don't even realize what their number is. They'll be like, oh, I microchip, but I don't know what their number is. That is something that you should have. And there's so many things now on your phone,
Yes.
so many things that you can do, and you can keep that information right in your phone. There's some great apps. One in particular that I really like is called Dog Buddy. I love it. It's a great little app. I keep it myself. It's called Dog Buddy. And it's awesome because you can put pictures of your pets there, their medical information, their vet's information, any medicines they're on. And you can put like their microchip number and all of that stuff. So that way, when it comes down, you have all that. You can just go right to it and like, oh, this is all my dog's information. This is their photo. This is their stuff. Here you go. So those are extremely important.
What I tell people also is, people take Facebook pages, people take pictures of everything.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, weird stuff that you don't even know about, but
Yeah.
they take pictures of, I'm dying and so in the hospital. But the thing is, I tell the people is, you could take pictures of your dog like once a month, and it's a full body picture, not of you with your baby, the dog by itself with a full body. You get it front and side, like they're doing the mugshots,
Yes.
once a month, for people to see
Yeah.
your dog, and God forbid if it gets lost. And the thing is, it's so important with that. Now, I want to say something for everybody. I just got a little technical stuff. I don't know if you saw me. Did you see me disappear?
I didn't know.
Okay, because I wanted people to know that in New York City, there's a storm. There's a solar system storm right here, geomagnetic storm that will impact with technology. Okay, so in other words, the GPS or what I just happened to me now, I hope it didn't mess up my show here, but it's going to pop up. So if you see something pop out and everything, it's not because I ran away. Okay, it's because of this little storm. It's supposed to be today and tomorrow in the New York City area. Anyway, let's keep on going. You also do more stuff.
I do.
Which has to do with something very important, because I was down in 9/11. I was down there for a whole year. I even caught something that they say is the best cancer, which for me, no cancer is the best, which is skin cancer. They had to operate here. So I didn't even know it was cancer. I was popping like a pimple. But a lot of us, a lot of my friends died in the aftermath, also when it happened, and in the aftermath also. And we're still dying. And not only that we're dying, but also the pets that were down there,
Yes.
sniffing, they died looking for bodies.
Yes.
And you got involved.
I did. It's just like, well, and that's a good point too about 9/11, because that's again another disaster situation, but it's man-made.
Yeah.
And so it can happen anytime. And that's where, again, our preparedness goes back to stuff. But yeah, it's really sad because all of those first responders, including the animal first responders that were there, the search and rescue dogs, and the animals that were there looking for the cadaver dogs and stuff, and the arson dogs, and all of those animals, they have all left us now. They're all gone. And the last one died a couple of years ago. And it's really sad. But they were exposed to so many different things. And so they're, it's impacted everyone. For me, it was just another way of being able to spread our message and work to help more animals, and people like handlers help their animals. And so I started working with the Firefighter Cancer Foundation, which they're based on the East Coast, and they work internationally, and they basically help spread information and resources and advocacy for our first responders. And that includes the animals. And that's where I come in, because I work with the animal division, because all of those animals, search and rescue dogs, police dogs, arson dogs, cadaver dogs, any animal, military dogs, any of those animals that are working and in the field and, got their noses and their paws in these, nasty things, basically, they're going to be exposed to this stuff. And we want to make sure that those animals are protected as much as possible. We have as many resources as we can to help identify things early, because obviously identifying things early, you can catch cancer, you can catch these diseases before they get bad, or, at least give them, catch them, early on, to try to maybe buy more time. And so that's where I kind of, got involved with that, because I wanted to also assist in any way that I could to basically help these animals.
You're talking about planning. I mean, I remember 9/11, I was at home and I saw it, I think, in the computer and then on TV, whatever. And then I suit up and I left, because there's no vacation, no nothing. Just something like this happens, like almost like an act of war, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
We had to get ready, and I went down there. There was no technology. It was blanked out. The walkie-talkies, the cell phones, nothing was working. Now we're doing this. We're going by our experience and survival mode.
Yep.
And the thing is, people run away. We, cops, NYPD, FD, EMT, we went to it.
That's
And
right.
not only we went to it, we kept on returning to it.
Yeah.
Now, I went on the aftermath. I went the same day down there, because we had to go to a meet. That the plan is, when something like this happens, we have to go to our closest command. I went straight, I was a detective. I went straight to the squad, and then from there we went to a place where all the detectives were. And we were ready for war. But they even told me, said, listen, call your family. This is an act of war. You don't know when you're going home. So now we're almost like soldiers.
Yeah.
And they called back and said, listen, it's not an act of war. Tell your family, but we're going to start doing 16-hour tours. And the reason because it's not act of war is because if it is an act of war, the insurance doesn't cover. So the family needs this money. So now it's not an act of war. So, I mean, I went through all this. I've seen all this.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is planning. And we were sitting down waiting. Like, we want to go. We want to fight something that
You don't even know. Yeah.
we don't know what we're going to fight. Because
Yeah.
we don't know what's going on. But we were ready to go and do what we had to do.
Yeah.
And then when we found out what's going on, it was only like that incident. Then from there, we were in the biggest crime scene in history, which was the World Trade Center. and we had to take that to fresh kill where I work 16-hour tours. Okay. So, but let's go back to what you're doing. So you have this program. Can people volunteer? Can people help on everything that you're doing?
Absolutely. And just what you were talking about, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, I got involved years ago, was because I saw that the first responders were, wanting to help. I mean, that's the thing. They want to help. Even like I said, even when they weren't even allowed per se to do it, they were still doing it. They were there. And that was one of the things I admired. And that's one of the reasons why I got involved too, because I wanted to help. And so when I get called or deployed to work on a disaster, I go when I can, because I want to help. I want to do something. I feel like at least then I'm doing something. And all first responders understand that. They understand that type of mentality, because you want to do stuff. I mean, I can tell you from going to many conferences, and, they've just started realizing like the impact of how this stuff, plays on us after so much time. And I remember going to one, Angel, where we went to this one conference in Palm Springs, and I mean, it was packed. It was like a mental health kind of class they were involving in all of the first responder conference. It was packed because there's so much involved in these disasters that, people don't even realize. And the public wants to help too. A lot of times they like come in, what can we do? What can we do? Can we donate money? Can we donate supplies? Can we, what can we do? And so that's another thing I try to do during disasters, is do the media portion of it as well for groups that are maybe overloaded. Maybe I'll come in and I'll say, okay, I'll help over here, I'll help over here, or I'll help over here. But I'm also really good with the media stuff. How can I help you get the message out? What do you need? What kind of supplies do you need? What do you need? Money? Do you need towels? Do you need, whatever they may need, so that we can get that to them at that time. And so everybody wants to assist in some way safely. And I mean, there are the people that, like you said, run, but there's people also that want to help. And so we want to make sure that that's available to them. And so yes, I take, I have youth. For one thing, I have a youth program that works with us, ages 10 to 21, and they get to join the youth group for free, and they learn all of this wonderful information and can use this to help decide what careers they want to work with animals, or even if they want to work in the field where they could be working with animals, like a firefighter or something, to help prepare them for, that. Everything from, all the community speaking to the hands-on stuff, they're going to get that. So that's one of the ways that, people can join my program and assist, is if they're a youth and want to help out. And obviously they wouldn't be working a disaster situation where they'd be in danger. I wouldn't be doing that with a child, but right. It would be a way for them to learn. And then also we take volunteers during, during different situations where I'm needing like extra hands-on for stuff, for things. And so I do take that. And we're also looking for people to help us spread our message and spread our classes and programs out there, because that way we get more information to more people and more training to more people. So that's another way as well. And so people can contact me directly about those things and let me know, what they want to do. Or even it could be, like I said, maybe they have, acreage and stuff. And that's great, because that's my website right there. Very easy, very easy to remember. And it says dogs, but it's everything. We cover everything. That's just a cool name, but we cover everything: reptiles, birds, horses, cattle. I've worked with it all. I've seen it all. Wildlife. I mean, I've worked with wildlife. So we work with all those different types of animals, all those different types of rescue groups, because in a disaster, you never know. I've had to move zoo animals. We've had to move zoo animals when there was a disaster coming and it was going to impact the zoo, because those animals have to be moved as well. You don't want them running, in the streets and loose. Right. We have to move them. They're trapped, and we don't want to just let them loose like you would, a horse, let's say. So they have to be moved. And so basically it's just making sure that, all of this stuff is in place. So so I do take in, volunteers and people that want to help, and be involved in the event of an emergency. And a lot of stuff can be found on my website too, even just like the list we were talking about earlier of like what to have for your kits and things. I taught, there's a page on my website that talks about, the different things that we were speaking about with VOAD and the different groups of preparedness. And it also has my list of everything to prepare, of what to take with you, because knowing what to have in your evacuation plan and knowing what you need is important as well, because people may not realize like, what all they need to have, what kind of things do they need. And one of the things that's really important, I just did this last weekend was doing trailer loading for large animals, horses and other animals. I did a emergency trailer loading class. Why is that important? And why is that drilling important? Because you may have to move large animals at some point in a disaster, and you want to be able to do that. And you don't want to wait till the last minute and then have the horses freaking out. You're freaking out. You don't know what to do. And we use multiple trailers, different sizes, different animals we're not used to, because if you're working with your own animals, they're going to basically follow you because they know you. If you're working with a strange animal, they don't know you. They don't know who you are. They don't know if they can trust you. They don't know the trailer. They don't know the crate. That's so important to do that. And so those drills are also important. And we do those with the military, with different rescue groups. And the reason that is to get those animals accustomed to being able to dealing with strangers, as well as dealing with moving them in a situation, and doing it so that you can work out all the kinks and bugs before it happens. And it was a great class because it showed everyone how that works. We had only one issue, and it was with an older horse and a rescue horse. They were a little skittish to get in, but we did it. And that way, when a disaster happens, we've got this preparedness. So I think that's extremely important too. People don't realize like, my animal's never been in a trailer. Oh, my animal's never been in a crate. Well, get them prepared ahead of time, because in a disaster situation, at some point, they are going to have to be in an enclosed space. Maybe once they get to the facility, they can be open and out. But in that movement time or some of the transition, they're going to have to be enclosed in something. And so I say, do that. If you have a fish, you want a carrier that you can take with you. If you have a bird, a carrier that you can take with you. You can't just grab that huge aquarium and take it with you. So you want to have stuff that you can use and take quickly. So having those carriers is so very important. But things like medicine, all of their food and water, all of that stuff is important. And all of that is on my website. They're all the lists and the things that they can pull that off of there and use that to kind of, have their plan of action.
Well, they do that. They do it in schools, right? And even at work, they do. Yes. Fire drills, and now the shooting drills, whatever they want to call that. If they could do that, they could do it now with so many hurricanes. I'm not lying to you. I went through 2 earthquakes in New York City. As was in my home. I saw the tremble and everything.
Yeah.
We have disasters everywhere. You don't expect it. And you have to, I could say I stood calm. My father, may he rest in peace, who was with me, I say, what you want to do? He says, finish our breakfast. We finish our breakfast. If you're going to go, I need you to go with a full stomach, right? But there's one thing I want to mention, because we spoke about it before, and it's very important, because you said the firemen use it for the dogs, and you give them out. So if they need it in New York City, or they need it in North Carolina, or wherever it is, you have a way to do it. What is this?
So these are animal oxygen masks, and this is another part of our program. Everything is, the disaster stuff is important, and because that's obviously a big thing, and it can impact anything. And so that's a big part of our program with everything. But the other parts of our program include prevention care and triage care. Under the triage care, which is going to be obviously what the first responders are going to be needing, because they're going to be, dealing with a horse trailer rolled over, or a car accident with animals, or fires that they're responding to, or it could be a police dog that gets, stabbed or shot in the field. we want to make sure that those first responders have the tools and the training that they need. And so that's something that we provide, as well as the kits and stuff. But one of the things that we do is also give the oxygen masks out to our first responders. And so we've got about 25,000 of these masks across the country so far. And in Canada. So that's great. And that's a lot. It sounds like a lot, but when you think about all the different first responders, it's really not. So there's still more to do, and there's still more to get out. And so we want to make sure we do that. Now, these are free. These are free. They don't have to do anything. If they're a first responder, they don't have to do anything but ask for them. And so they're basically made by a company called McCullough Medical. The vets use them and stuff. And so they're really great because they come in multiple sizes. And so we make sure that they get what they need, the supplies that they need, so that they have the tools, you know, on board their vehicles to save the animals in disaster. And they come in a set. They come with a, you know, with a bag, basically has all, you know, the info on it. And they come with a multiple set. They come with instructions and stuff, even though, you know, I provide training and things for them as well. But they come with leashes, a couple of things, being able to, you know, properly restrain animals and stuff. And that's also important in a disaster, and also even for like first responders, because you get with, you know, you're dealing with behavior issues and, you know, and animals panicking. So those are also other important things. But basically these kits come in, these come with multiple masks. And the mask can be used, you can see there's tubing inside here. The mask can be used with the oxygen tanks that they have on board the trucks and stuff to be able to give the animal oxygen. They also can be used with ambu bags, which, you know, not necessarily would a police officer carry an oxygen tank with them, but they could carry an ambu bag. And with the ambu bag, you just pop the top off and you attach it right here, you know, at the top, and then you can actually provide, you know, the breathing through squeezing the bag and putting, you know, having this go directly into the animal. So it goes directly over the face of the animal. I'm going to show you on one of my little babies here. So this is Heidi. She's one of my newest little dachshunds, and she's a rescue. And she was actually found wandering the streets in Bakersfield, California, and she was eating trash. So she's about 4 years old. She's a little sweetheart here. And so basically this little mask would just slide right over the muzzle. And so if you can see, it's very comfortable. It's not, you know, painful in any way. It just slides right over the muzzle. And she was a good girl too. And so it just slides. Yeah, she just slides right over the muzzle of the animal. And then they can basically give that animal oxygen and help assist them in the event of an emergency. And so if they're having trouble breathing, thank you, Heidi. If they're having trouble breathing, or even if they're unconscious, then they can use these masks to give them, you know, the care that they need and the triage that they need until they can get to the vet hospital, or until, you know, the animal is, you know, breathing again on its own. And so that's one of the things that's really great is to have this product available for the first responders, and they can contact me directly through the website if that's something that they want to get, or even if they need replacements. These are washable. They don't, you know, they're not something that you would throw away. I had one person tell me that they thought they threw them away after the use. I said, no. They're, you know, they're washable and reusable, unless they're breaking down, unless there's an issue with, you know, the plastic or something, but then we can always replace them. They can get a new
And that's anywhere in the country if they could get it.
That's right. And we use,
how about
right. They anywhere can get them. And basically, we used to just do it to firefighters, but now it's also offered to our other types of first responders, search and rescue, the police departments, because again, that's one of the things I advocated for. I'm like, why are we only offering this to, because it's through a partnership that I work with Project Breathe, Invisible Fence. And it's like, why are we only offering these to firefighters? We've got so many other types of working dogs, especially like I said, police dogs, you know, animals that are put in danger. They could be shot, stabbed, ingest narcotics, any kind of things. And there's no vet in the vehicle. There's nothing, you know, if the handler doesn't know what to do, and that that officer, because that animal is an officer, if something happens to them, you know, there's a lot of time and money that goes into training those animals, and you don't want that animal to die. So if that handler can assist by giving oxygen and knowing what to do for CPR, knowing how to, you know, give fluids, knowing how to supply care and triage for that animal, they can save that animal's life.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I mean, it's supposed to be a half an hour show. It came in out, but so much information, so
I know.
especially now with these hurricanes,
Yeah.
you know, and tornadoes and earthquakes and Jesus, even solar system. You
I know.
Right now it flicked. So people, please listen. Please donate. Donate, please. Go to website doge911.com. doge911.com. Donate there. Look at her videos. Look at everything she has there. People, first responders, go to her. You get some free stuff. Remember, if it's free, it's for me, right? So stuff also, and you're helping animals. And people, please spay and neuter your pets. And do you know where your pets are? And also, please subscribe. Subscribe to this channel.
Yes, and
You can see all the shows. You can see everything that's going on. It's very educational and very helpful. And thank you. I'm gonna mess up your name again. Genere.
And you're so welcome. Thank you for having me. And please, anyone reach out to me if they want more information about anything. Go to the website and look up. There's a lot of resources on there. And if they want to take classes and learn about these things and learn how to help their animals in an emergency, you know, that's one of our biggest things. We do classes in person. We do classes online. We want people to be prepared. We want people to be aware.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Spay and neuter your pets. And do you know where your pets are?